A recent report by the Media Research Center found that Quentin Tarantino's new movie, called The Hateful Eight, contains, and this is a quote, 49 acts of brutal violence, shootings, stabbings, a hanging, torture, forced gay oral sex, and several incidents where women were shot or beaten. What is wrong with people in Hollywood? Whatever happened to thinking about what's good and joyful and funny? Why all the gratuitous violence? And this from a man who's a staunch supporter of gun control and who's called our nation's police officers murderers. But Hollywood doesn't recognize hypocrisy, do they? Joining me now is Vice President of Business and Culture from the Media Research Center, Dan Gaynor. Dan, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Now, you described this recent Tarantino film as overwritten, overacted, and grotesque.
Yeah, and that's kind of an understatement. It was so awful because what Tarantino does is he celebrates violence. The actions, the first person you see receiving violence in the movie is a woman, and she gets beaten 3 different times. Strongly beaten 3 different times. And then there are 32 different incidents where people are shot. And this is not like old John Wayne movies where you see somebody shot and they fall over and there's a little red spot on their shirt. This is gruesome acts of violence where people are blown away. In some cases, where you really see a lot. And we know for a fact that Hollywood believes they have an influence on American culture. They believe it every time they want to and never when they don't.
All right, well, let me ask you this. I'm going to play the devil's advocate here for a second, but some would argue that Tarantino's movies are mirroring our society, that he can justify being a supporter of gun control while at the same time having all these weapons in his movies because he's trying to have a social commentary. He's trying to represent the culture of violence in our nation through these films. What do you say to that?
Bunk. Tarantino is what he's doing. He's celebrating a lot of the movies he saw in the 70s, the very heavy action movies, but he's overlaid music on them and extreme violence and shock. Even when it's not the violence, it's verbal violence. The characters in all of his movies seem to constantly use the N-word. There are a couple scenes of vomiting in the movie where, again, it's overdone. When you have one character, such as an Al Pacino, overacting in a movie, it kind of shows that character is larger than life. In Tarantino's movies, everybody overacts, or is over violent, is over offensive. I mean, there's a monologue from Samuel L. Jackson about the forced oral sex scene that is just, it's designed to shock, but what it ends up doing is delivering schlock.
Well, how is this justified then? Coming from, and given the premise that Hollywood does try to portray a liberal message, no one's arguing with that. How is